right, we are live. Want to welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Jonathan Bannister. I'm the owner and founder of Top Serve Digital, a digital marketing agency. Been around since 2015 that specializes in the home service space. I'm also the host of the Home Service Hustle podcast. I also have a new book coming out, shooting for last month, but we're shooting for a December release. The book is called Fuck Digital Marketing. Why building a memorable brand matters more than ranking. So super excited about that. And look, I'm putting this webinar together with a friend and business partner on a different company, Ken Baden. And, there's a couple different reasons why I wanted to bring this together, right? We started getting heavy into the roofing space this past year on the digital side, and I learned something from one of my clients here in the Dallas market. I learned that a lot of homeowners are just not educated on what actually is taking place on their roof, right? And I got to live that experience because obviously I'm here in Dallas. We've got a lot of hail. And when hailstorms come, we get blown up with phone calls, door knockers, everything you could imagine. But over the last couple of years, we've had a couple of hailstorms, but they've been small. And I went out of town on vacation just a couple months ago, and my neighbor sent me some pictures. And I could tell it was in my roof. I'm like, why the hell are you sending me pictures of my roof? I'm in Florida. What are you doing? And he goes, look, the next door neighbor of ours was getting a new roof put on. And he said they came and knocked on my door. They asked to get on my roof to inspect it. I'd let them. There was no damage on my roof, but they said your roof's got damage, and they took pictures of it. Well, then I called the client of mine and said, hey, can you go check this out? Right. I'm not going to let some stranger up on my roof while I'm out of town. My client goes to check it out, and he comes back. He goes, dude, you've got damage. We're going to go up there today. We're going to tarp it. And but then he told me, he said, Jonathan, look, here's all the pictures. Here's all the circles from the hail damage spots, right? He goes, but here's the thing. He asked who my insurance company was, and then he told me, he said, there's not enough of those hail marks in certain areas. You're never going to get the full replacement. And right then I said, dude, how many other homes in Salina and Prosper and Frisco, Texas have damage on their roof right now? But they had someone get up on their roof, because I had a few roofers get up on my roof after the hailstorm, but they came down and said there's no damage. But really there just wasn't enough damage. They knew that it wasn't going to be completely replaced. And I just felt like this is a great opportunity for Ken, because I know Ken is passionate about the retail space. And I said, look, more people I think need to know how to sell retail instead of just getting up there ripping off roofs when it comes storm season and chasing these storms that this year we saw that it didn't really happen. So with that, I'd like to introduce Ken Baden. Ken, thank you so much for coming on. And look, more and more people are coming in, but I do. Oh, sweet, right? I see some comments. Sam's here. We've got David here. We've got Mason. Listen, for those of you on here, I'm going to let Ken start introducing himself. I would love for everyone that's here right now to open up your comments and just drop where you're from, right?
Yes.
Which
state you work in.
Yeah, which state you work in. And I would also like you to put the state you work in and then put a percentage. And that percentage I want you to put is what is your percentage breakdown from retail to insurance, right? Is it 80-20? Is it 100%? I know I was talking to Aaron that's on here now, and he told me I think it was 99% or something. It was real high that they're in the insurance space. So just put where you're from. Hey, dude, you got somebody here from your backyard, Annapolis.
Wilson
Alex,
or Shane.
Alex Minshaw is right now.
Oh, yeah. Oasis.
Sweet. We got Adam Jones saying Louisiana, 100% insurance. We've got 90, 10, 95%. They're coming in. We got another Brian Castillo he's in Maryland. Don't know which part of Maryland, but 99% insurance. This is going to be great, guys.
Yeah, if
Ken.
they're in Maryland, they're probably friends of mine or somebody I know. But
Well, Ken, let's kick it off, dude. Let's get this party started. And listen, for everybody, I just want to tell y'all, I am gonna be here. I'm gonna mute myself once Ken gets started. I'm gonna be in the comment section. I'm going to be moderating this. So if you've got questions on any part of what Ken talks about, drop the question. I will make sure that it gets answered towards the end of this, right? I mean, this is going to be roughly an hour long. I want to get started now, even though more people are coming in. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But if you've got questions, do not sit on it. Just drop it into the comments. And I'm going to be asking maybe some questions throughout the presentation. So make sure you check it out. Ken, let's rock it, dude.
Cool. So real quick, just to echo what John was saying, as far as John, can you hear me okay?
Hear you just great.
Cool. The main, if you guys are doing insurance work, and know that, first of all, I'm not just some random, for those of you who don't know me, you guys in Maryland, you guys know me probably very well. Brian worked with me for a while. So shout out to Brian. He's currently doing his own thing. I'm proud of him. Retail means something very different to me than probably all of you all. And that's really what got me doing what I've been doing for probably the last couple of years. I've been in this industry since 08. For those of you all who don't know who I am, I want to qualify myself real quick because, you might want to know why the hell you should care what I have to say. I didn't just fall into this last year. I've been doing this since 08. I started in retail. I started for a company called Power Home Remodeling. It's one of the best. It's a top 5 remodeling company in the United States. Some of you guys might know who they are. They're $1 billion plus revenue company. When I first started to work for them, they were only a couple offices out of Philly. I believe we were their first group in Maryland. So it's really wild to see what they've become. That's kind of the dream for all of us, right? So I myself have a remodeling company, Potomac Custom Remodeling. We are operating in 2 states, soon to be 3. We're going into our 5th year in January. Just some things that, again, might mean something to you all, relevant to just why you might care what I have to say. We achieved platinum status through Owens Corning. We're the fastest to achieve that. We did that in 2 years and 9 months. And again, some of you guys know what that means, and you know how hard that is to do. We're also a diamond installer for Tamco, but I've actually been a part of 2 platinum acquisitions. The company before this had a partnership. Brian knows what I'm talking about, but not a great partnership. But that kind of happens with partnerships, right? Don't mix friends and partnerships. I've learned pretty much everything, good and bad, that you can learn in this industry. Since 08, I've learned from some of the best companies in the industry. And through my years, I was the top rep in the room. And then I was the sales manager, and then I was the sales VP. And finally, I got tired of working for guys that, carrots that always disappeared. And, I'm big on that. If you say it, you better do it. And, I went out and started my own with a partner. That company did just fine. So I've been a part of 2 7 and then 8-figure companies in the last 8 years doing this exact model. But I've also dipped my toes in the insurance restoration side. So I know both intimately. John Sinak of Name That Shingle, NTS, for those of you guys that are hopefully all of you are insurance based. John Sinak's a good friend of mine. He sits on my board of advisors. Adam Bensman, the roof strategist, is sat on my board of advisors. He's a good friend of mine. I'm currently working with Dimitri on some content, but my oldest company is a consulting company. That's the company that I started first. I wasn't sure I wanted to get back and do this. You guys know it's a lot. It takes a lot. I had built and been a part of several startups as a sales manager and then a sales VP. It takes a lot out of you, man. I don't need to tell you guys that. So I wasn't really sure I wanted to do this again. I did it as a partner. We got platinum. I left that, started my next one by myself. We got platinum faster than then, and set the record for achieving that. So, I like to think I might know what I'm talking about. And I have a list of clients, some of whom might be on here. If Wilson's in here, he's a past client of mine and a good friend of mine that I've helped either learn insurance or the retail model. Those are the 2 models that I teach. But full disclosure, my bag is retail. That's where I come from. It's what I'm passionate about. I'm not, I recognize the importance of insurance restoration. We still do it. But getting back to what I was talking about and why I think this webinar is relevant, now that I think I've qualified myself enough, retail means something very different to me than it does 99% of insurance restoration folks. Whenever I talk to an insurance guy and he's like, oh yeah, we do retail too. Typically what he means is the insurance carrier denied that claim. And John and I did a webinar on this too. The insurance carrier denied the claim, or you got a partial and you try to flip to retail, meaning you offer a price and they say yes or no. And that's pretty much it. How many touches have transpired between all of that? How much revenue was exhausted? Maybe not much at all, but it still means something very different. When I say retail, or when I say I come from a retail model, that is an entire business model. So the two, insurance restoration and retail, are completely different verticals. In my company, they are completely different verticals. One has nothing to do with the other outside of if something doesn't work out. Of course, we can flip the lead sources. But when you're hiring insurance restoration reps, traditionally, they are very different folks than who you may be hiring for retail. And the adverse is also true. I'll say this. A retail rep, if you get him to get off his lazy ass and go climb on a roof, can do insurance restoration. It's unlikely, but he can. But there's often the fact that an insurance restoration rep is not traditionally usually the best bet for a retail rep. And I'll explain more why. But there are very big differences down to, the types of personalities and their skill sets that are important if you're going to run a retail model, because a retail model is predicated on what we call a one call or one sit close. Meaning if I'm a salesperson in retail, the only way I make money is if I have a lead at 2:00, I have 2 hours to sell that lead and make money, or I don't make any money. That's it. And that's not insurance restoration, right? Insurance restoration is traditionally, it's a setter closer model, but often, a lot of, there's different ways to skin the cat. I get it. Some companies do provide leads. Some companies provide some leads. Some companies, it's just all door to door. And the reps are similar to solar. They're their own door to door action. They knock, they see it all the way through. Again, there's different ways to skin that cat. Well, retail is a traditional setter closer model, meaning your job as a company is to provide that rep leads, period. And that's really the bane of the existence of every retail company, is to provide leads. That's going to be the number one thing. Anytime you talk to anybody when it goes to retail, what's the biggest thing you're having trouble with? Or it's if you figure out leads, you figure out the game. Right. So leads are very, very important, but the model itself, everything complements each other. So there's the sales methodology that you have to learn in order to sell or teach a rep to sell on a one call, sit, close. But there's also, where do you get the leads? How you get the leads, how you qualify those leads. All of that comes to and is one big ecosystem that results in a one call, one sit, close 40% of the time. That is what you're looking to achieve. Industry standard would be closer to 30% of the time. But that is why when I say I come from retail, that's what I mean, right? It's one call, one sit, close, and we're looking for a minimum of a 30% close rate minimum, right? And those leads that we're getting are issuing at a specific set rate. And, the name of the game is leads, right? But there are a lot of pros when it comes to retail as well. Let me just make sure I'm not, you guys have to forgive me. My VA threw this together for me to keep my ADHD on track. But the core idea, as I was saying, is an emphasis on the system. This is another cool thing about retail. When I say I'm a retail rep or a retail company, I'm not bound by roofing. The traditional retail model is roofing, siding, windows, doors, and gutters, because the system is the same for all of those products. The only thing that changes is the product. So retail offers up diversity inherently in what it is as a model, where you can just insert product and all you change is the product demonstration, or what we would call the product demo, right? So this winter I can go out and do windows, no problem. And it's the same system. The way I procure the leads is the same. The way my guys sell the lead is the same. The only difference is the product demo, right? So again, the common, if you're from Maryland or if you're from the East Coast, there's companies like Thompson Creek, Long, Power is, of course, one big one. Erie is a big one. And if you guys pay attention, I mean, they're not like solely roofing companies, right? Well, that's why the system is the same. And there's no coincidence on the products they choose. They tend to often stay away from interiors because the interiors are difficult to do on a one-call, one-sit model. It's not impossible, right? Typically, you might see something like acrylics or bathrooms. That model can be done in a one-call or a one-sit format. But exteriors gives them the safety net to run the same system, the same way, just product demo changes. Similar margins, similar close ratios, but they can run that same format every single time. It's just insert product. So if you learn a retail model, then you can do any of these products that you want. Really, you can do any products you want, period, once you get savvy enough. I could add decks if I want to. It just depends on whether or not I want to do a one call or one sit. So like I was saying, the system itself or the business model itself, the way I make sure I explain to all these guys in the insurance side is you have to understand that it's an entirely different business model. You can't just jump into retail. Look, there's a reason why we see such a heavy saturated market in the insurance restoration when it comes to roofing. And let's just be real with each other. And I'm saying this, look, I have the insurance side myself, but we all know it's a hell of a lot easier to start the insurance than it is retail. Because retail requires capital. Retail is a lot more risk. It's upfront risk, upfront capital. Whereas insurance restoration is, let me get a ladder, let me get a truck. Depending on the state that I'm in, I may or may not have any requirements to even go take a test. I go bang a door and ask them to get on the roof, inspect it. Insurance company gives me a check. I'm in business. Well, retail requires upfront capital to even procure those leads in the first place. And then you better close them at that 30% or better, like you were talking about, or you're not going to make any money. But the good news is if you can do that, you're paid that day, right? Retail systems move quick, real quick. Power installs like next fucking day. And they're $1 billion. So they've got production specialists out the yin yang, right? Putting these things on literally the next day sometimes, right? They move that way on purpose. And that's the thing. Nothing about what these companies do is arbitrary. There's always a reason. So getting back to the overall 1,000-foot view of what a system looks like for retail, it starts with lead generation. This is really, really important. There are two main types of lead generation. There's inbound and there's outbound. So again, if you're from my area, there's always going to be a company that's a big company in your area. Think the company everybody knows. And they know them because of a brand, right? This is something John talks about, John preaches. Now, I don't preach that off the rip, and there's a reason behind that. But I do think it's important long-term, very important, in fact. But those companies are going to be focused on what you call inbound, getting the phones to ring. Those inbound leads are great, but they come with their own pros and their own cons. To get started day one, I need leads today. I need something that I can count on right now, not something that I have to wait, 90 days to create or 90 days before I get enough traction to start generating leads. Canvassing is the number one next to call center, and the two often work together to produce leads in a retail format. Traditionally, think of a company like Power, if you guys are familiar with Power. Power is almost exclusively canvassing. Home Genius, they're $500,000. I just talked to one of the owners the other day, Spencer Pepe. They're 300 plus million, but they have 130 some odd million commercial company as well. But these guys are 65% lead aggregators and call center, and the remaining is 35% canvassing. So lead ags, call center, and canvassing. They're outbound still. Your outbound sources are, we're going to go get them. We're going to bring them to us. That's what canvassing is. The two are so totally different that if you have a sales guy that's used to selling one or the other, they're going to have a lot of trouble going into, and I'm having, if Jake or Josh are in here right now, they're my most recent clients from Minnesota. They started using, we teach outbound to start with because it's the quickest way to get going. Then they started utilizing inbound, right? They just made the switch, but they didn't change anything right off the bat in terms of their approach. Well, our approach is really centered around outbound. These guys are used to having to create urgency and do certain things to make sure these customers feel safe. Well, inbound, you're going to be always really dealing with, I've got other estimates coming. It's almost 99.999% of the time an inbound lead knows they need the product, but they also have other estimates already set up. So if you're used to the exclusivity of outbound, which is why I love it, you're going to have a hard time getting used to inbound. So I don't want to go too in the weeds on that, but I did want to make the distinction between the two. Getting started, I would always start with outbound, always, because I can control it. I know the net, I know the percentages that I need to be worried about. I can get a couple canvassers out there. If I want to get really frugal, I can 1099 them as long as I'm not putting them in a van or breaking any classification issues. And I can do it, in a very cost-effective manner. And that would be my advice, is always to start that way. So if we're starting with outbound, why do I like outbound leads so much? Why does Power Home Remodeling still work 90+%? I'd say at least 80% canvassing, the rest followed by, lead aggregators and call center, because it works, right? They're really good at it, but it's also incredibly cost effective. But here's the thing. It is perfect for a retail model. Why? Because it offers the exclusivity and the emotional piece to it that we need to be able to sell at a high ticket. And that's why most of you guys are on here, probably, right? Like, I get so many folks, you can't get $1,000. You can't get this ticket for, what are you talking about, dude? We were selling for $1,000 a square from Power 10 years ago, right? Now, I would agree that was, an awful lot, right? I don't think they have to do that, but who am I to tell them what their margin? I don't know what their $1 billion+ dollar, I don't know their overhead is. I'm sure it's high, but you know what else we did when we were at Power? We walked right in there and told them, we are going to be the most expensive person you see. So they're out there ripping people off. They're out there poking their chests out and telling them, like, hey, we're going to be the most expensive product you see, period. Renewal by Anderson does the same thing. All these big brands do that. But how does Power do it when they don't have the brand? They're the biggest company no one's ever heard of. And they do it because they focus on outbound and they focus on quick movements. They focus on canvassing and the emotional buy. So canvassing allows them, they have very strict standards. And again, I'm trying to compartmentalize this to an hour, and I can certainly go into greater detail. And I don't want to get too caught up into this, but I do want to focus on it so I can paint the picture as to how they can make this happen. When I say this, I mean a high ticket sale in 2 hours. But focusing back on the overall system itself, I'll get back to that on the next slide, guys, because I know that's what you want to talk about.
So
start with your lead
here real quick. We've got more people that have showed up. For those of you that are new, that have come in the last, let's say 10, 15 minutes, drop in the comments where you're from, which state you're from. And then if you would put where you're currently at on the breakdown of ratio between insurance and retail. And then I've dropped a few questions in there for those of you, if you'll see it, which is for those of you that have expressed you're heavy on insurance. Is that where you're wanting to stay? Where do you feel that sweet spot is for you? Is it 50-50 or is it 80-20 one way or the other? If you'll put that. And then also for Shane asked an awesome question about marketing. But I just want to clarify, Shane, if you can answer my question back.
Shane's in Maryland. That's my buddy.
Okay. So Shane asked, if
I'm going to assume it's
Shane Michael. Shane Michael. Okay.
That's him.
Yeah, it did say Maryland.
Brian, what's up, buddy? I just saw the comments. I had them turned off.
Okay, sweet. So just let's stay active in the comments, because I do want to make sure if y'all have questions throughout this, I'm going to make sure that there's time carved out and Ken answers every single one of them for you.
Shane, just hit me up, brother, if you don't get a question answered. Anytime, Shane. But I would, John might be another good person to, John. So look, John sits on my advisory board, man. There's a lot of things that I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but I created an advisory board. Here's what I would suggest and give you guys for free here right now. It's one of the best things I did, and it's all strategy. I created an advisory board, and on that board of advisors, are people that are beneficial to my company to help us pursue and hit our end goal. And so I'm looking for accountants, attorneys, folks that I can then say, hey, if you sit on my board of advisors, I'm looking to give you a third of a point in what they would call phantom equity, but which is a change in control agreement. In other words, if this pursuit happens, in other words, I'm looking for an investment in the future here, and that's my whole goal. I'm currently chatting with private equity. I know they have a couple not so friendly reviews as of late, but I would never take a business arrangement that isn't favorable to my people. So we'll see what happens, but that is the end goal. But I can talk to you guys more about that in the future too. I think that for a strategy's sake, it helps to get guys like John Senek, like John Bannister here, who can help you in your business, and it usually lends itself to a cost-effective, mutually beneficial arrangement where why wouldn't they want to help you get to that end goal if they're going to stand to benefit. So I'll just throw that out there because, again, it's been huge for me. Adam Bensman was a big help. He connected me with some excellent folks in networking. John Senek's been a big help. So I'll go back to the conversation at hand relative to retail. So the retail system, as opposed to insurance restoration, where we're just banging on doors, and anybody, anywhere, anytime with some talent on doors can go out in a market like Texas, that has a lot of work, or Minnesota, right? 3 years ago, Minnesota was hot, dude. We had companies like my buddy Tony Flattams, where they went from like 20 or 40 to 65. One guy did 18 million because the work was so prevalent. 2 years later, they have no storms. And that's been a bulk of my business because I take on a couple consulting clients a quarter. It's come from Minnesota. Because now what? Now what do you do? Right? If you're in a traditional storm market and you're used to storms, and then boom, there's just no storms, or they're not what they usually are, you had better have the ability to sell. And it's not just throw some prices and hope people call you back. You're going to be in big trouble doing that. This is the system that puts you in the driver's seat. And this is the system what the biggest companies run. So first and foremost, where they get the leads are absolutely number one, above all else. I would traditionally stick with outbound to start, because outbound is going to lend itself to the easiest. It's going to match perfectly with the selling system that we teach to sell at a high ticket. And I would, get more into that. So when I say outbound, I'm always going canvassing. I know it's a pain in the ass. Trust me, I do, but there's a reason why companies like Power still do it, and companies like Renewal by Anderson still do it. Once you have that lead source established, like an outbound lead source where you can generate leads quickly and effectively, and that ratio should look something like a 3-to-1 ratio. In other words, 3 leads to 1 demo. A demo is a demonstrated lead, whether it sells or not. That rep should be paid. So 3-to-1 or 30% is a good industry standard, and a good demo rate period across the board is probably closer to 20 to 25 to be conservative. So 10 leads is 2.5 demos. 3 demos to sale, or 30% should be your basic Betty breakdown. If you want to run some numbers, every company is different, but that's the most universal number I can give you. So you have your lead source. Start with outbound. That's what I would focus on, because it's the quickest, it's exclusive, and they tend to sell at a higher, better margin. And we're going on emotion, right? So we've got to set quick. We got to set same days and next days. Then the confirmation or dispatcher is equally as important as where it sets. In other words, you need an unbiased third party to be that. Here are the qualifiers that make this a qualified lead. I'm given that list. I'm not in call center and I'm not in closing. My job is to confirm that. I am the unbiased party that says that this goes or doesn't go. If you let canvassers issue leads, everything will go. And you'll have a lot of pissed off sales reps. If you let sales reps issue leads, nothing will go. And you have a lot of pissed off canvassers. So you put that third party dispatcher in place, and they're the ones that issue those leads. And it's an important piece that often gets overlooked, right? To make sure that you're running qualified leads. If you're not running qualified leads, you won't have decent salespeople and you won't retain anybody. Remember, this is a 1,000-foot view, so I can help you guys more intimately on some of this, but this is the formula. Lead generation, confirmation, or dispatch, the selling system. So now this is where your closers come in. So once it's been dispatched to a seller or a closer, they need a system, and that system has to be predicated around some very specific things to ensure that if they follow this system, that they'll close at that 30 or 40% demo or closing rate. So it starts with basics like rapport, needs analysis. Then they do their inspection, interior and exterior, including the attic. Then the presentation itself. The presentation has its own subset of steps. Typically, company story. I believe I have a slide on that, but I don't want to go too in the weeds here. Your financing or your get a 1 day price. I know saying that sounds cheesy, but there's a way to deliver it where it doesn't. The close itself, or laying off price, I would call it. Objection handling, because you're inevitably going to come up with some objections, or they're going to come up with some objections. You need a script to handle that and handle every possible objection the same way every single time. Cancel save script. Someone tries to cancel, or just your cancel script in general. In the state of Maryland, they have 3 or 5 to 7 business days. Delaware 3, Virginia 3. Every state's different. And there's maybe some legal requirements there that require you to disclose that. And then your button-up process, which is ensuring that customer doesn't cancel. This is all just basics, and you can go way more in the weeds of each one of these components. But this is the framework, and I hope that you guys are getting value in this. I know it's really high level, but I'm trying to get into the nitty-gritty here.
And let me just jump in. I've got Aaron. I just want you to know, Aaron, like,
how do you compete with someone who offers the same shit for $300 a square?
Yeah, and that's fine. I didn't want your ADD to go to the comments, right?
I'm on purpose not looking at them.
Okay, don't look at it.
I want to answer that so bad, dude.
No, it's fine. And every question, that's what I'm saying. Keep asking your questions because I'm gonna make sure they all get answered, right? I've got
David, thank you.
Yeah. David. Cool comment. I think one of the strongest people he's got on his board is myself. I'm just gonna say that. But no, but everybody, ask your questions because I'm gonna hold Ken accountable to answer them, right? And again,
I'm not looking at him because you're right. I'll go crazy.
Like he said, we're gonna try to keep this within an hour and 15, 20 minutes. But I want everybody I want them to get something from this, right? And like Ken has said, I've told Ken we've created a link. I'll just let y'all know now. At the end of this, there's going to be a link that you're going to be able to get a 30-minute 101 with Ken.
Yeah, we could chat 30 minutes.
Yeah, so like if you've got more questions, you want to get deeper on a very specific part he's talking about, that's fine, right? He had to keep this as high level as possible, but I think the questions are going to be important. So ask your questions and go ahead, Ken.
And if there's one I can answer within the relevance of the slide, because I want to give you guys 1,000, but the 30-minute call it's free. Look, I'm looking for somebody to possibly work with here, but we'll do these for free anyhow. And if you know me and you're in the comments and you're from this area, you already know if you can call me or talk to me, I do this. So I don't have to sell shit. I'm just being real. I don't have to do that. I enjoy doing this, and this is what I want to do in the future post-exit. But I don't have to, you know what I mean? I like doing this with John. I really like training salespeople. This is what my first business was, and it's what I really like doing. You guys know, man, this is hard, dude. Like the actual remodeling business or roofing, it's fun, it's thrilling, but it takes every bit of you, man. It really does. And so if I can help, man, I would love to. So, and again, if you're in this state and you know me personally, I hope that you can attest to my character. All right, so let's just make sure I didn't miss anything. The rehash system. See, look, I was getting ready to leave that. So you've got lead generation, outbound and inbound. I would suggest starting with outbound first because inbound takes time to build a brand. Inbound is going to come with its own set of challenges. It's absolutely possible to sell. It's perfectly possible to sell. It's actually great. Once you build a big enough brand, you can come in and put your you-know-what on the table and just, hey, look, I shopped Anderson recently. Guy came in there, didn't even do I know he didn't do what he was supposed to do. Didn't do the real presentation and just looked me in the eye. I'm like, look, we're Anderson. This is going to be $3,000 a window, you basically, are you even interested any further? Right. Or do you want, or just don't waste my time? I didn't say that, but that was the level of confidence he had. I respected it. That's the brand that if you're able to build that, man, I mean, that's then you can really talking, right? But that takes time. Anderson didn't do that overnight. So we start with outbound. Outbound traditionally closes at a higher percentage, higher margin. So where you get your leads matters, because if you start with inbound, then like my man said, now you're going to be competing with. So the first thing, avoid having to compete with those guys in the first place. Set yourself up in a more exclusive situation by changing your lead sources and focus on outbound to start with. That'll get you out of the having to fight with everybody, right? Like, I want exclusivity because I don't want to have to fight with that if I don't have to. If I can, then it becomes, I need to create enough value and put myself over here and this guy here. And I need to make it very clear that I'm going to be more expensive. I don't want to see, this is why I'll start going off on all the different, I want to answer all the questions, but I'm going to lock back in. Rehash system.
You need to close the comments down. I'll let you know.
I am. All right, I'm going to go back to private chat so I don't see him.
Dude, this guy sees more squirrels than
dude,
shut those comments down.
If there was ever a poster boy for what's that drug that you can take for ADHD? Adderall, that's me. That's what my wife always says. All right. Lead generation, confirmation center dispatch, making sure that these things get out fairly and qualified. Selling system. That selling system is what you call your sales methodology. Our sales methodology, I believe, is a 7-step sales methodology that includes rapport. If you don't have rapport, which is people buy from people they know, like, and trust, right? That's establishing rapport. Now, if you pan over here, guys, I'm actually a certified NLP coach as well. I'm really a nerd when it comes to why people make the decisions they make from a psychological level. And I teach my salespeople the same thing. I'm a big fan of DISC. On NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, physiological level, you can tell when you're in rapport. But keeping it really simple, business is not discussed. The temperature of the room has dropped and the people are comfortable with you. You're in rapport, right? Now they trust you. Now you have a much bigger chance. That's really your best chance to sell. If they don't, you have no chance. So number one is establishing rapport. That would be how I might overcome the guy doing it at 300, because I have rapport and that guy doesn't, right? Needs analysis. That tells me where I'm going to go throughout the rest of my presentation. I'm looking for probing and layering. In other words, open-ended questions that are going to lead me to what problems do you have? Where are your hot buttons? What's important to you in looking for a business? What experiences have you had with other contractors? I need to start doing my homework and a needs analysis, because that's going to tell me where I'm going next. Basically, how do I sell you? I hate to say it that way, but that's the truth. My presentation is constructed. It's the same way every time. Company story, value building, system of checks and balances. From value building, it goes into problem. What's the problem we're dealing with? Black streaking, blue-green algae, missing cupped or cracked shingles, whatever, right? Whatever the issue is with the roof, 3-tab, old. Solution, here's my solution, Owens Corning, Platinum. I am personally really big on exclusivity, to go back to what that gentleman said. I'm going to put myself in a one-of-one scenario with exclusivity. And I can talk more in depth about that later, but what is my value proposition? Why me? Why me versus the guy who's 300? My job is to articulate that to the homeowner and keep my price here. I'm not coming here, but my job is to articulate that value to the homeowner as a good sales rep. Your job as a homeowner, as a business owner, is to provide your sales reps with every fucking thing they need to be the guy that's confident and say, yeah, we are going to be more expensive, but here's why. Can you see how we would be? That's what you need to give them. You need to give them the bullets in between the here's why and can you see how we would be, where the customer says, yes, actually, based on the things you showed me, I can see how you would be more expensive. That's your job as a business owner. Give them the objection handling scripts, cancel save scripts, button up process. Then we have rehash. So lead generation, dispatch, your selling system, and then you have a rehash system. So if we're selling at a 30 to 40% close rate, where do all the other leads go that don't sell? They should get funneled back into a call center. If you don't have a call center and you're really small, then it's okay, I'm just going to have my sales manager do this, or I'm going to do it. Maybe I'm that small. Either way, I'm going to be rehashing every single one of those that doesn't sell. I don't give a damn if Tommy was in there for 4 hours and fought and says, oh, he said he's going to call me Friday. No. You start playing that game, things are going to get very ugly. The logistics are going to be terrible. No. You make your money on the first sit or you don't get paid. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. It's the industry. And it's made that way for a reason so the business owners can scale their business. Because if you don't do that, it's going to be a logistics nightmare. Salespeople are notoriously bad at follow-up and bad at freaking paperwork. So I want to put somebody in a leadership spot or somebody whose sole focus it is to do the rehashes. That's my personal opinion, because rehash is such a big part of your business. Sam's in here. He can tell you that's 20 or 30% of your revenue that you're missing out on if you don't do it. So if you're closing 40% of the leads you run at 1,000 a square, or let's just say 900 a square being more realistic on average, right? Because you're charging 1,000, but are you going to get 1,000 every time? No, you're going to have to drop price. So let's say you average 900, but that's only for 40% of the leads you run. Well, if you're getting an additional 20 or 30% on rehash, obviously it's going to be a much lower margin, but that's still a hell of a lot of volume that you're just throwing out the door if you're not properly doing it. So it's very, 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 very important. I can go into how to do that on a different call. There's a script and a way to do that, but I don't want to get too in the weeds here. All right, this is what I know you guys all want to talk about. How the hell do these guys sell for $1,000 a square? And we can go into, okay, well, how do I keep it that way? But let me tell you how they do this first and foremost. And look, I come from power, long, home fit. Like, I like coming behind these guys too, right? Because I know they're charging that. But there's got to be someone in you that's like, well, how do they do that? How the hell do they get away with that? How do they do that? And I'm going to tell you. First things first, how they generate leads plays into a part of that. Now, some of these companies like Long have such a brand that they still can do that. Renewal has such a brand that they can go inbound and they can lean on that brand. And I'm telling you right now, the folks will come in there and they'll prep their homeowner. Hey, look, we're going to be expensive right off the bat. They don't shy away from it at all. But if you're just getting started or you're just getting into retail and you have no brand, you have no anything like that to lean on, you got to go outbound. And then if you're power, that's all they do is outbound, right? They're not relying on a brand. So how are they doing it? Well, let's stick with that. First things first, they stay outbound, they stay canvassing. Their canvassers are only allowed to do same days or next days. That's it. They might have opened it up a little bit more since I was there, but they need it to be an impulse, emotionally driven buy. So the homeowner's like, okay, yeah, sure. They had never even thought, contrary to inbound, where they're like, yo, we know we need a roof. We're calling you. These folks hadn't thought about it at all, probably, right? You just knocked on my door 6 hours ago. So how did they go from you just knocked on my door 6 hours ago to holy shit, I've got a $40,000 roof. What happened? It's emotion. It's knocking that door, setting the proper standard by having that rep deliver. Okay, hey, I see X, Y, and Z. The salespeople come behind. They complement what the canvasser started to say, and they expand on it. Hey, here's why you should care about A, B, and C, black streaking, blue-green algae, what I think are leaks in your attic, because I've gone in your attic. That's a really big, important part. And I see water damage here, right? Now we're really starting to create urgency, and that is 99.99% how we do what we need to do is urgency driven. But it starts with an outbound lead source that's going to get us not in a situation where we're looking at 5 different estimates, because it has to be that way, right? If we're charging $1,600 a square, we can't constantly put ourselves in a position where we're going up against 5 estimates every single time. So if we're going to charge a premium every single time, we want to go with a lead source that's most likely to get us an exclusive opportunity, and that's going to be lead eggs or canvassing. Easiest is canvassing. So that first things first, that's where they start. Canvassing gets me exclusivity. 20 to 30% demo rate. I already told you guys that already. That's what you should be looking for out of your canvassers. 20% starting off, 30% when they're good. Sales system. Then you have a sales rep who's taught a complementary sales system to piggyback off of the main lead source that you're trying to. If you know our company is going to be 80% outbound, then your selling system should be curbed to appeal to that, right? Like, okay, we're going to be focused on outbound. So we know we need to go heavy urgency because these people probably never even thought about a roof, right? So my first close as a sales rep needs to be closing them on the idea that they need this product. If I just bypass that, what good is an estimate? They're going to be like, okay, thanks. I don't even give a shit about this because I don't even know that I need this. So your sales reps have to be expertly trained. And I have the system to complement this is there's a lot of scripts and a lot of trainings, but this is, again, 1,000-foot view. I'm trying to get as much as I can in an hour here, guys. So selling system that should complement the Canvas system at a 30 to 40% close rate. So if I run 3 leads in a day, I should close 1 of those on average. Quality materials and superior warranties. What is that all about? How does Power take that and charge? Power has a 1-of-1 scenario. And I hate to keep using them, but I have the most respect for them. Like that, they're kind of like my idol in that regard. I started there in 2008, and what can you say other than I would love to be in their situation, right? $1 billion in revenue. I mean, those guys are still just smacking stuff. They don't make any apologies for being the best, and they don't shy away from charging a lot because they think we charge a lot for what is a delivered excellent product. And we don't shy away from it. What's the difference in the jeans you're wearing between the ones that are worth $5 in Walmart and the ones that are worth $1,000 because there's a name brand attached to them? What's the difference in the threads and the thread count or in the blue dye? Like, you know what I mean? The difference is in the brand. The difference is in what's being sold as. It's the same damn jeans, really, right? If you didn't know any better, you wouldn't know any better. But in this case, our job is to separate ourselves. It's not just a shingle is a shingle. Power sells roofing systems. That's where these warranties are important. I saw a guy on Dropping Bombs podcast talking about warranties are the biggest ripoff in the industry. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, you've just told me everything I need to know about who you are in the industry in 2 seconds. Because you're not – all of us want to achieve the highest level warranty with one of these manufacturers. One, they give us a ton in kickbacks and things like that. If you didn't know that, they help you a ton in marketing costs and things like that. They work with you. They do trainings. They treat you like kings. 2, those warranties are excellent, and they're backed by the manufacturer. Like, what value is a warranty outside of the company that stands behind it? I could destroy you if you're going to compare you and your little company that's been around for 2 years, 10 years, 20 years compared to GAF that's been around since the 1880s. Come on, man. You can't set me up like that. I'll take you down every day, 3 days from Sunday or whatever the hell the saying is. Like, you have to have exclusivity. Power has that in spades. Power has an arrangement with GAF where they have their own shingle. So there's never truly an apples to apples scenario. So they work in an element of exclusivity. So they have this air of confidence that, hey, we're the best, and we're going to tell you that as soon as we come out. We're not going to shy away from that. And then they compartmentalize themselves into a space that is them and no one else. There is no apples to apples. We can look at all your estimates if you want to, but we're not comparing apples to apples. We're comparing apples and oranges. We're here, they're here. Our warranty is exclusive to us. No one else can offer that because it's our work. An arrangement with GAF. I don't have that. I wish I did, but I am a platinum installer, and you better believe I did that for a fucking reason. It plays when it's in retail. It doesn't matter to us in insurance restoration. It doesn't. It's nice, but in retail, it's paramount. If you want to sell for high ticket, you better have an exclusive opportunity, or you better paint that picture. If you don't have access to those warranties yet, what do you have that puts you here when everyone else is here? And I'll leave some of that for you guys to do some creative thinking, man. I can give you what we do. But first things first is the warranties. If you can get an exclusive warranty and you continue to take yourself from here, we're 1 of 100, to here, we're 1 of 20, to here, we're 1 of 10, to here, we're 1 of 5. And what are the chances that I'm sitting here bidding against one of those 5? I only got to worry about the 3 people I'm bidding against or 5 people I'm bidding against. What are the chances that one of those 5 are platinum? And if they are, what are those chances that one of those 5 are platinum plus RSRA or platinum plus RSA plus diamond, or we're the fastest? That's one thing we can tout here is my company is the fastest to achieve platinum. So if I'm up against another platinum, I can say, hey, that's fantastic. I'm sure they're excellent. As I said, we're the fastest to achieve that warranty status, period. So, that means something, right? Like, so you've got to have something to where you're not going apples to apples. And you can, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but how Power does it is they use elements of exclusivity. They don't compete with anyone. So the other person can't pull up an estimate and say, well, hold on, they're doing, well, yeah, let's take a look at that estimate. They're doing some cheap knockoff synthetic, or they're doing felt paper. We're doing the best of the best felt paper. And then they go in and they sell components. So the main thing they do in the expertise that they focus on is they sell roofing systems. The shingles don't change in any of these scenarios, guys. They're the same fucking shingles that a homeowner could get from Home Depot. What does change is the installer level, platinum, right? Presidential or Master Elite or Shingle Master certified or Diamond certified, right? And they better be certified to install. And if they're certified to install those high-level systems, you have to sell the system. You're selling the underlayment, you're selling the starter shingle, you're selling the ridge vent, you're selling the hip and ridge shingle. And there's a good, better, best available product for all of these. So you better be selling the top one of those, right? And you better be telling them why they should give a shit. Because if you don't educate them as to why they should care, there's no inherent value associated with it. So your job is to build the value in every product demo. If I was to do my product demo for you right now, I'm going into every component of the Owens Corning system, every one, right down to, hey, we're going to use 4.25-inch galvanized roofing nails. We don't have to use 6 because it's OC. If it was GAF, we'd have to use 6. If it's GAF, we got a shingle or starter shingle on the rake. Owens Corning doesn't require that, so we could save some money and cut there. But Owens Corning does require a difference in where the drip edge goes on the eaves and the rake, whether it's under or over the materials. It's little nuances like that you need to educate your homeowner that if their installers aren't properly trained, and most aren't, because ours are trained to install platinum systems, and Owens Corning comes out twice a quarter, every quarter, and spot checks us. You may be one of them, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Our guys are expertly trained to ensure that all of these little micro details that could void your warranty don't happen. In fact, we guarantee it because of this, and this. And then you have your product guarantee, which is also something that they guarantee, satisfaction guarantee. So they assume all of the risk. So yes, they're charging a premium, but they can afford to do that because they're not competing with anyone. They're putting.
Let me hop in here. Let me hop in and ask one question while you take a little swig of a drink or eat another mint or something.
Dude, look at this. This thing gets filled once a week. I don't know how I'm not 250 pounds by now.
I want to ask everyone. I've put in the comments, David. Thank you for putting your response here. But I want to ask everybody two things. I'd love for you to answer. One, a lot of what Ken's talking about is your brand, right? Like when he talks about this presentation, he is selling his brand. And your brand, I want everyone to know, like, and I asked a question here, like, what would you give your brand? What grade would you give your company? I'd love for you to put that. I actually have a tool that I'm going to drop the link after some people put their score. I'm going to drop a link so that everybody can actually go through and get a rating of what their brand score is that we've built recently. But your brand, change out the word brand for reputation, right? So, I mean, what do you think your business reputation is on a score, both what the outside world thinks, your customer base, but also what the digital platforms think that your brand is worth? And then think about, and I would love for everybody to put the score there. I'm not going to call you out and ask you to put what you think your presentation is on a grade as well. But you hear what Ken's talking about. Like, so when the question was asked by Aaron earlier, like, how do you compete if we're trying to sell it at 6 or 7 and all the other bids are at, 3 and half that, one, Ken's telling you got to find a model to where you're not competing against the 5 or 6 others, right?
But I have to stop you there real quick. Like, Power doesn't do any of that. No one knows who Power is, and everybody in here knows who Power is, but knows that no one knows who Power is. So, like, it's not. They're all outbound. I'm not saying you don't need to do that. Like Thompson Creek and these other guys, they do all of that. But like, what we're specifically talking about, I just do want to make the distinction that like Power is heavy. They do that for a reason. You know what I mean? They'd almost rather, look, what's the number one complaint we all see when it comes down to power and their employees? We see their stuff passed around, the $90,000 bids. Half the time, if they get a complaint on anything, it's their rep was too aggressive or whatever, man. And I can tell you as a sales manager, back in the day, things were a lot more hammer and nail. Sam knows. We used to high five for those, man, because look, we were wanting our guys to be aggressive. I think those days are definitely less now. You can't be as aggressive, but their guys are still very, very. So they don't want to be like that. So I'm just making a clear distinction that they do what they do for a purpose, and I promise that I would divulge those things. But I personally am working with John right now relative to wanting to build. I think that's important. I think that there's also an angle to be worked where if you're canvassing, one thing John and I are looking to work on is, what's it called? Geofencing or something like that. Basically, the idea is like, yo, if you're going to go and knock these doors anyhow, what if we could get in and run some ads and try to make that a warmer door? I think that's a brilliant idea. We're doing that right now. We're running metrics on what that looks like, and we'll jump on a couple calls like we talked about. If you guys have more questions for myself after the fact, 30 minutes, I can give you literally what we're doing relative to that. But the guy who owns it's on here, right? In fact, if you sign up, when was it, John? If you sign up for the thing in the end, you're going to get a free
30 minutes with you, and then we're going to do a free digital marketing audit.
Which is what they did for us, and came up with a whole bunch of shit that we knew was going to be bad because we don't, I was candid with John. I told him straight up, hey, man, we don't do this, right? We pay a little bit for, I don't know, I don't speak John's language, but just to have a semi-consistent online presence. So if someone was to look us up, we don't look like we don't exist. That's pretty much all I cared about. Everything I did from year 1 to now, which is 5 in January, was boots on the ground. And look, we've made it to 8 figures, right? In a very, I feel, short piece of time in our market. But what could we have done if we did? That's where I'm at now is What could we have done if we had brand? What can we do if we had, and how much of that, right? It has to be compartmentalized. Like, okay, well, maybe we're 90% outbound, but we can do 10% here towards, if we're doing what we're supposed to do here, we can allocate 10% here. But it is important that we have a clear distinction of where we go needs to be clearly identified, relevant to leads. And we don't just like throw shit at the wall and hope it sticks with outbound and inbound. Like, you have got to know, if I'm just getting going, I'm going immediately outbound with a backup and inbound. I just want to make that distinction because I don't want anybody to get confused. Like, that's what I'm saying. Or maybe even if that's what John's saying. He might be what he's saying.
My point here was that brand can mean a lot of different things, right? Some people think that your brand is your truck wrap. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. It's a component of your brand. Your brand is how you make people feel. So it's how they feel about you before they engage with you. It's how they feel after they worked with you. It's how they feel about someone who's used you that was going to refer them, and how that person speaks about you. That's what your brand is. But I would say that you talking about your presentation and what you're going through, or your sales guys are going through, that is part of your brand. That is selling and letting people see what your value and worth is when you're putting out these larger numbers, right? So all these little components that Ken's talking about, the warranty that you have, like, you have to find a way that makes you exclusive. You're different than those 4 or 5 other options that came through.
Hey, we've only got like 1 minute. I just want to wrap up, if I could, please.
Go for it.
This last question here, because I feel like I want to make sure I'm able to answer what I said. So this last one here, I think, guys, is really important because we get this all the time. Like, well, my market doesn't let me do that. And that's maybe true. How do you know what to charge in your market? Because I say $1,000 a square in my market, I know what our average is for asphalt shingles. You know what I mean? Like, I know what it is every single year because I pull things like a cost versus value report, or I shop. I did this a long time ago, but if I was to pull up, I have bids from other companies, right? Like, there are several ways you can do this, but you don't have to do any of that. If you were to just pull up, I believe Remodeling Magazine does it. I think this is Remodeling Magazine, but the one that just happened in Vegas, the Qualified Remodeler. And then you have cost versus value, which this is probably the simplest one. I'm going to give you guys this. I've said this a million times, but it's costvsvalue.com. And just whatever state you're in, whenever I have a client, I had a prospective client in Ohio. He's like, oh man, I see these big companies and they're coming in like 600 a square. That's cool that they do that. Does power exist in your area? Are there any companies that don't? In Minnesota, there's plenty of companies that are charging a premium price point. That's who we're competing with. We're not competing with whatever that guy's doing. I don't want any parts of it, right? What's the average in the area? And the average in his area in Ohio was like 900 something, right? Even in his area in Ohio, which was probably a lot different than our area in the DMV, which tends to be like 1,100 a square on average. So first I'd start with what is the average for asphalt shingles, because I'm going to put this into my presentation. I'm going to educate our clients as to this is what the average comes from. It's a third party source, right? Like I'm not making this up. So much of what we do is educating our client. That's where this average comes from. And it's based on 25-year shingles and felt paper. And we're not offering you that, are we? We're offering you twice the warranty and synthetic underlayment and. So if this guy's charging you 3/4 less than that, why? What's missing? Let's take a look. And then you can go in and look at their estimate and go in and break that down. And if you have the exclusivity I was talking about, then you should be able to say, well, yeah, he's doing X, Y, and Z. And if it truly is apples to apples, I mean, I don't know very many platinums or folks at that high a level that are like just giving shit away. I mean, if they're running $300 a square, chances are they're doing felt paper or they're desperate as hell. And it's your job to educate your client. Like, look, that's like cost. So I don't know if you want to do business with someone who's just robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's your business to do that. But, in my opinion, if they're charging that cheap, they're cutting something, right? Whether it be quality installation, whether it be the warranty, or whether it be a product or the quality of the product, something has to go. It just has to, because as you see here, based on the averages in our area, 25-year shingle felt paper, like this is what was done for you. It's done every year, and it's done to protect the consumer, to make sure the consumer is aware of what the averages are in their area and what it's based off of. And this is just one way to back up your claims. Like I said, you can shop, you can do a lot of different things, but if you don't, this is called price conditioning. If you don't price conditioning appropriately, you won't do any of the things I talked about, which is why this was so important to bring up. And you have to do this 100% effectivity. Like you've got to have them believing this is going to cost X, and then you come in at or just below that. So if it's $1,000 a square, you're right there, you're just under. Like, look, I'm right at the average, or I'm just under the average for twice the warranty. So it's education, it's following a system. We can get on a call after this. I don't mean to, I know it's 3:03. I tried to do as much as I possibly can. The presentation formula is the same every single time. I can give you guys that on the call, or I can show you ours. The presentation is what we show the homeowner in the house. Every company that I work with has their own presentation, but it's usually the same stuff. Company story, value building, what makes us different, problem, solution, price, condition, warranties, and guarantees. But if you're familiar and never seen anyone else do this, you guys know what I'm talking about. And we can show you, I'll show you what I'm talking about on the call. What I typically do is work with one-on-one businesses. Wilson, if you're still in here, Wilson and I have worked together before. We worked with him. It's not just me, it's my team. These guys have been with me for years. I am looking for 1 or 2 businesses currently. I only take no more than 2 on a quarter because I just can't with the bandwidth, and I don't have to. And I also guarantee our results. So I can't guarantee that if I take too many people. I also can work with who I want to work with because I don't have to do this. So if you guys want to jump on a 30-minute call and just ask questions, awesome. If you want to see if we might be a good fit to work together, I am still looking for 1 or 2 folks. I have a few people I'm talking to, but as I said, I got to really like the right person. And I got to know that you're going to listen to what I say. Otherwise, I can't guarantee you results. But one thing I'm really pumped about is SRS is my distributor. Basically, all of my distributors and manufacturers have agreed anyone that works with me is going to get preferred vendor pricing, but also a ton of other. They've gotten as far as to guarantee that if you don't already exist with them and you switch to them, they'll comp this. They'll comp what what it costs to work with me. You have to hit specific markers, but we can talk all that stuff on the call if you guys are even interested. Or if you just want to ask questions, I'm not going to be, irritated about that. If you sign up for it, you get what John was just talking about as well, which is a free marketing audit, which they did for us and was really fucking impressive. That's honestly how we got to working together. We were working together when, on a separate business entirely. And they did that for us. And it was impressive enough to where we're like, all right, you guys are going to take over this. So you get that. But we'll jump on a call as well. And you can ask me anything you want to relevant to what we just talked about, or I can show you stuff. So there's also a group that I'm working on as far as how we might be able to work together. So if you want to jump on that, it's right here. Scan that, fill that out, and we'll go on a call together. We'll get 30 minutes and we'll either I'll answer your question, show you what I possibly can, and maybe we can work together. But again, I'm only taking a couple. So
I'm starring a couple. All right, cool. A lot of people, Jason's been providing a lot of value and answering questions to people. So yeah, a couple of things I want to say. I want to get the answers asked and responded to here. I know I told y'all about the brand equity or the brand score. I'm going to drop that into the comment section here. If you want to see, all right, we built this tool. We've got it, a ton of API connections with all the social media platforms, with all the review aggregators, right? Not just Google, anywhere else reviews can be. Where your SEO rankings on your website, the load speed of your website. We've got so many things entangled into the software, but it will give you a grade, and it's going to tell you what your brand equity score is out in the digital world. So go through that scan, get the report card. It gives you recommendations of what you could do to improve it. But here's what I want to tell you is I truly believe that brand and brand equity achievement is going to be one of the most important things moving forward. AI is going to be a huge disruptor over the next couple years. And so where you typically get your leads from, if it's inbound, it's going to be a struggle. And there's going to be some testing, right? ChatGPT and Perplexity and Gronk, all the AI platforms are going to roll out paid ads this year. And I bet you they're going to be cheap as hell. And they're going to get people hooked and try to get them off of Google. So there's just going to be some wild shit that's going to happen over the next, 12 to 18 months. And I believe that if you're working on your brand and educate, and look, and it doesn't, when I say brand, it doesn't mean TV and radio necessarily, right? I think you can achieve the same or better using social media to lock onto areas. If we talk about addressable geofencing, that's locking onto a rooftop, and you're tapping into the cell phones and the Wi-Fi of that particular home. And you can get on their big screen TV or on their apps or on their phones 4 times a day, every single day. So if you identify that these are the homes that are worth the amount of money I want, they make the amount of money I want, they're the age home I'm looking for, you can go get the data and you can lock onto that rooftop. So I think you can strengthen brand a lot of different ways, but I just believe that all the way down to the presentation that Ken's talking about, that's your brand. Like that is a part of your brand, because you're saying this is who we are and this is what we stand for. And this is why we're worth what we're charging, because I'm presented it to you right here. And here's all the awards we've won. And this is, X, Y, and Z. It's part of your brand. And if you don't have that, you need to get it in place. So I want to go through some of the questions here. And I'm also going to drop, just in case y'all are on your phones watching this and you can't scan that QR code, or it's a little pain in the ass, I'm going to drop the link to that form in the chat as well. But like Ken said, Ken's team or Ken will reach out once you fill out this form to schedule you for your 30-minute call with him. And again, it's to talk about him either being one-on-one consulting, being in part of the group, or just picking freaking Ken's brain, right? He'll talk to you about how to be a dad, right? He's a brand new dad. A lot of you could probably give him lessons because his daughter is just like months old. Or you could talk to him about how he's got the best hair and dresses the way he does, right? Like I'm picking his brain about that, or dive deeper onto the shit that he taught here. But regardless, use the 30 minutes to try to figure out how to fix some of these things. So,
I had a guy, one of the only guys that showed up to, we were running ads a while back, and super nice kid, but it was like into a call, and no one was showing up for the call. The only one that showed up was a crazy person. And then this young kid we've all been there. He had just got started. I mean, just got started. His camera didn't work on his phone. So he was like at his feet, talking to me. I'm looking at his feet. But I talked to him for 30 minutes, man. And I just gave him as much help as I can. So I really don't care, man. It's value to me. It's a network connection. But I am looking for a couple folks and we guarantee our results. You got to listen, but we guarantee them. And they should be comped and completely covered. That's the cool part is it really shouldn't. It's a write-off. B, SRS should comp it and what we're going to achieve over the course of the year. So it's kind of a no-brainer. But I'm also looking for people that actually listen. And sometimes that's hard for us. And I get it, man. So but either way, I'm willing to answer any questions no matter what.
All right. Well,
just call me anytime.
We got a couple here. David asked lead generations. He said, is there any value in a mailer campaign? I want you to give your perspective, and obviously I'll give mine.
I mean, so I did plenty of mailer campaigns. I still do, but the way I do them is it's probably not that different than what John's going to say. John's the first guy that thinks similar to, I don't know, probably how I would as far as some of this stuff goes, which I think is why we're working together. But the way I ran them I wasn't expecting this to really, I don't think we got a single phone call from it, man. And we just got a client that was an HVAC company and they say they got a, X% whatever return rate they got. I got none. I got nobody that called us back from those things. What we used them for was a warmer door. So I anticipated that it was probably not going to result in a phone call or a lead. So what I did was I sent them out strategically to zip codes, and then I sent our Canvas team in, the following Tuesday when I knew they hit, and I'd have the Canvas team have it, and then I would just have them say, hey, did you guys happen to see this? It's something solar does too sometimes. Honestly, the end result I'm looking to achieve is simply a warmer door. 90% of the time it made its way into the trash can before anything else, but that's okay. I'll teach my rep to say that. Teach my rep to say, hey, yeah, no idea. Yeah, you probably just tossed it in the trash. Hey, that's totally cool. Here's what it said. And again, it's just the hope of if that gets me in 4 more doors than it wouldn't have or otherwise wouldn't have, then it should pay for itself. But, that's why I used it. Otherwise, I wouldn't. If I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't.
So my answer would be, you got to think of what industry you're in. So does, your traditional direct mailer is going to work pretty well for plumbing and air conditioning? Yes. Consistency matters. Targeting the right people matters. When it comes to roofing and what you're trying to achieve, I believe, and what we're working on with Ken is the right message at the right time for the right reason. So if you've got a canvassing team, I would strongly recommend and suggest that you do whatever you can to strengthen the success of that canvassing campaign. So if over the next month, your guys are going to be touching these 5 or 8 or 10,000 homes in the canvassing process. Well, how do we make it a warmer knock, right? So here's an example of a direct mail piece. I'm going to try to get my camera to, all right. So this is using an auto pen. All right. I'll leave my political jokes out of this, but, and then here's the mailer that it comes in, right? This will come into focus here. I've got my windows open. There's a lot of natural light coming in, but I want y'all to see this envelope, right? So this is a regular white envelope with a stamp that, again, it's handwritten to that homeowner. So you think about if they were to get a letter and they're going to open this, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be like a 99% open rate than your traditional, 5.5 by 11 or whatever, or 5.5 by 9 direct mail piece that they see what it is and they chunk it in the mail or in the trash can. But think about the letter is short, sweet, and to the point. It's who I am. I'm the business owner. And over the next couple weeks or month or whatever, our team's going to be in your area. And here's what they're going to be talking to you about. And it could just be straight to the point, right? You've been identified in an area that there's been storms, or, did you know that X amount of homeowners, what percentage does not realize that they actually have damage on their roof, and that damage going unresolved and not fixed could cause, damages that are tens of thousands of dollars. And so we're going to be in an area and we're going to be giving free roof inspections, whatever the message is, but you got to figure out, how do I get that in someone's hand, reading that so that it makes a warmer knock? Or how do I get it on those 5,000 homes on the addressable geofencing? How do I lock on to that home, and 4 times a day I'm telling them my guys are coming and they're going to be knocking, right? Like, there's ways to do this, and you just have to figure out what works. So, this is the A/B testing. And if you're not with a marketing company that's not A/B testing a lot of different strategies, like, you can't stay stuck and going, well, this isn't working, let me just go to the next marketing company. Like, it's all about testing. We require clients to let us take 10-15% of their budget, and it's always for testing stuff. Because we learn new strategies, we hear new things that are working in different markets, and we need to be able to try it. So you should be trying the same thing. I want to get to the next question on, let's see. Shane said, if you have $20,000 for marketing or getting leads, what would you spend it on, Ken? And I asked him to clarify, and it was to spread that over 3 or like 1 to 4 months. What would you spend it on? Here's what my answer is while you're thinking about it. My answer would be, do you need instant leads? Right? Like, do you need leads tomorrow? Because that's how I would, put my answer out. If you need leads tomorrow, then obviously I'm going to put it into,
I know, Shane, so that's what I'm thinking of, but go ahead.
LSA, PPC, something that I can get. Now, it's expensive. I don't like it. I don't prefer it. But I would do the direct mail strategy, right? I mean, or I'd put it in the canvassing team there. If I needed something tomorrow, and I know that's what Ken's going to say, because he told me, like when it comes to when I need, the reason I love canvassing is because I know I can knock on a door one day and get a job and get paid for it. So digital takes longer to produce. If this was something, how to best use $20,000 over the next 4 months, and you had a canvassing team, well, then I would say use some of the strategies I was mentioning to make that a much warmer knock, a much more successful campaign. But yeah, Ken, I'd love to hear your answer.
I mean, that's it. It varies, Shane, that. So and it varies relative to where you're at, what you currently have, all of these things. But, I would always go canvassing first. But giving you guys some insight into my most recent client, they've had lots of success with canvassing, but canvassing is a pain in the ass, man. If you don't have the right management in canvassing, you're for all intents and purposes, and excuse my language, but you're fucked. You're gonna waste a lot of money. Canvassing, I had a ton of success with canvassing at my last company because I was running it. We were so so small that I could handle. It was me. I went and started the first team. I got these guys going, and then I got the first manager in place, and they worked amazingly, right? Because I could micromanage them. That isn't scalable, right? Now, the last client I had, they had a lot of great instant success and then intermediate success. But every time, if they took their foot off the gas relative to overseeing it and passing it off to another guy, well, that guy shat the bed, and then boom, now what, right? Now canvassers are running wild. They're people. So I would always say canvassing first, but they just had a lot of success with Facebook, so they'd probably say well, because they do have the canvassing team and they could wait 3 months while canvassing was providing them leads, then they're really happy with what Facebook's been doing for them recently. But if you need leads immediately, there is nothing else to talk about.
Yeah.
It's canvassing.
Yeah, and we're wrapping up here, everyone. If there's no more questions, make sure you click the link or scan the QR code. But like what I'll say, this is a real story that happened. Ken asked me to audit his company. I was almost embarrassed to give him the results, right? But luckily he knew the results. But I was just like, holy shit, like I know what y'all are going to do in revenue this year. Like, how have you done that with these digital results? And he just laughed and he just said, he's like, oh, John, he goes, we don't really make any money, any revenue off of digital. He was like I've tried digital in the past. And he goes, these marketing companies tell me it's going to take 6 weeks, 6 months or six something. He's like, but I know with canvassing, you knock one day, you get paid, the next. Right. And so that to me was like, oh my gosh, right? Like we need to implement this for our plumbing and HVAC and electrical companies because they're missing out on this revenue stream as well. So to see what Ken's been able to do on the retail side, knocking on someone's door that did not know they had a roofing problem, doesn't have the 4, 5, or 6 other estimates out there. But I think there's processes and steps that have to be put in place. And I think Ken's done a phenomenal job putting that together. So I want to thank you, Ken, for jumping on the webinar, educating, giving your time.
And we'll do another one, man. We'll do another one. We'll do another one soon.
Yeah, I just heads up to everyone. I've talked to Ken. I've talked to Sam Wakefield that's on here as well. He's sales training and would like to do one of these every month and come from a sales perspective and then come from a leadership operation, canvassing team, a lot of different topics that we can cover on Ken's side as well. So feel free to, when you do your one-on-one with Ken, mention some of the things in the future that you would like to talk about. And we'd love to be able to provide that value. So thank you for everyone that came and stuck around to the end. I know it's been an hour and a half. So everybody have a great day. Thanks, everyone.